It was a calm, ordinary morning when the first sign of the alien fleet appeared in the sky. At first it was just a small dot, barely noticeable, but as it grew larger, the people below began to understand something was different. News spread like wildfire across the globe. Extraterrestrial ships had entered Earth's atmosphere. The world was in a frenzy. Some people rejoiced, hoping to learn from beings far more advanced than humans. Others, however, were filled with fear, imagining war and destruction. Many wondered if Earth was finally ready to meet the galaxy's inhabitants, but no one could have predicted the true nature of the encounter. David, an ordinary mechanic living in a small town, was oblivious to the global chaos. His daily life was spent working on engines and helping his neighbors, not worrying about space invaders. That morning, he noticed the strange sky but thought little of it. He had a car to fix, and that was more than enough to occupy his mind. When David heard the announcement on the radio, his heart skipped a beat. Alien visitors had landed, and soon their emissaries would make their first public appearance. Curiosity nudged him, and without thinking twice, he decided to go see for himself. The alien ships were massive, hovering above a designated landing zone. The world's leaders gathered nearby, surrounded by military personnel and scientists eager to make the first contact. As David stood at the edge of the crowd, the aliens emerged. They were tall and elegant, with smooth, reflective skin and faces that exuded an air of calm intelligence. Their clothing shimmered with a silver glow, and they walked with grace, as though every movement was part of a dance. David was in awe of their beauty, but what struck him the most was the way they looked at humans. Disinterest, even disdain. The aliens, with their superior technologies and seemingly infinite knowledge, had come to study Earth. However, their perception of humans was far from flattering. They had already decided that humanity was primitive, inferior, and unworthy of further attention. To them, Earth was just another primitive planet, barely out of its infancy, and humans, little more than dirty, unruly animals. As they spoke to the leaders of Earth, their words were clear. Your species has nothing of value. You are a passing curiosity in the vastness of space. David, standing at the back of the crowd, heard every word. He could feel a deep sense of anger and frustration rise within him. These aliens, who had never even tried to understand humans, were dismissing them as inferior. As the aliens turned to leave, David couldn't hold back anymore. He stepped forward, caught the attention of one of the emissaries, and spoke from his heart. "You're wrong," David said firmly, his voice steady and strong. "Humans may not have the technology or the grace you do, but we have something you can't see from your ships. We have heart, resilience, and the ability to rise above every challenge." The emissary studied him, her face unreadable. "You misunderstand," she replied, her voice cold. "Your species is primitive. You will never be more than this." David didn't flinch. "Then maybe you should see us in action before you judge us." The alien ambassador hesitated, her gaze sharpening. It was clear that she had not expected this kind of response. David's words hung in the air, his challenge not just to the aliens but to the very idea that humanity could be dismissed so easily. The tension between the two species was thick, and it was clear that this encounter would be anything but ordinary. In the coming days, the aliens would learn that humanity was far more than they had ever imagined, and David, a simple mechanic, would be the one to show them. But for now, he stood, waiting for the next move, unaware of how his challenge would change the fate of Earth forever. After David's bold words to the alien emissary, a strange silence fell over the crowd. People around him were stunned. Some were nervous, unsure whether he had just signed humanity's death sentence or sparked a change. The aliens had not expected such a reaction. They had assumed that humans would simply cower before their advanced technologies and superior knowledge. The leader of the aliens, a tall figure with silver hair and piercing eyes, turned to face David. There was a moment of hesitation, as if the alien was calculating whether this was a challenge worth responding to. "You speak with confidence, human," the alien leader said, his voice carrying an icy calm. "But you do not understand your place in the galaxy." David stood his ground, his heart racing, but his face calm. He had always been the quiet type, the one who kept his thoughts to himself. But now something inside him had clicked. The arrogance of these visitors had awakened a fire within him. It wasn't just about his town, his people, or even Earth itself. It was about defending the dignity of the human spirit. The crowd around David began to murmur, whispering amongst themselves. They had witnessed something unexpected, something that was not in the script of the peaceful, docile meeting they had been prepared for. The alien leader took a step closer to David. "Perhaps you wish to prove your worth. I challenge you to a test of strength, skill, and intellect," he proposed, a slight smirk playing at the corner of his lips. "If you succeed, perhaps we will reconsider our judgment of your species." David looked into the leader's eyes and, without hesitation, nodded. "I accept. But don't expect us to bend to your standards. We fight on our own terms." With that, the alien ambassador gestured, and the challenge began. The air seemed to hum with the anticipation of something monumental about to unfold. Cameras and drones hovered above, broadcasting the scene to the rest of the world. Everyone was watching now. The first part of the test was a physical challenge, an obstacle course designed to test human endurance and strength. David, though no athlete, had spent years working as a mechanic, lifting, carrying, and fixing heavy machinery. His hands were calloused from years of hard work, but his body was lean and strong. As he approached the starting line, a hush fell over the audience. The alien competitors, towering and graceful, seemed almost unnatural in their ease of movement, but David didn't flinch. He knew he was at a disadvantage, but he wasn't afraid. The course was brutal. It required climbing walls, crawling through tight spaces, and jumping over large gaps. The aliens moved like machines, with precision and speed. But David pushed through. He stumbled, scraped his knee, and pulled himself up when it seemed impossible. He wasn't the fastest, but he was relentless. With every obstacle conquered, the crowd began to cheer. For the first time, they saw the strength and resilience that had kept humanity alive for so long. The aliens had underestimated the power of determination and grit. David's spirit was contagious, and soon, people on Earth who had watched the live broadcast were talking about how one man was standing up for all of them. By the end of the physical test, David was exhausted, but he had completed the course. He had proven that humans, though not as physically perfect as the aliens, had an undeniable strength that came from perseverance. The alien leader watched in silence, his face unreadable. David had passed the first test, but there were more challenges to come. Would the humans continue to surprise them, or would they fall short in the face of intellect and strategy? David didn't know what would come next, but he was ready for whatever the aliens threw his way. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for all of humanity. And this was only the beginning. After David's remarkable performance in the physical challenge, the alien leader stepped forward again. His cold, calculating eyes met David's with a mixture of respect and curiosity. David could feel the weight of the alien's gaze, but he didn't back down. "You have proven your strength, human," the leader said in a low voice. "But now we will see if you can match that with your intellect." David took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm of thoughts rushing through his mind. He wasn't sure what kind of test the aliens would have in store, but he had a feeling it wouldn't be anything simple. The alien leader raised his hand, and the ground beneath David's feet shifted. A large holographic screen appeared before him, displaying a series of intricate puzzles and complex equations. The crowd fell silent. The alien spectators seemed eager to see if David could keep up. To them, intelligence wasn't just about solving puzzles. It was about understanding the universe, about logic that was far beyond human comprehension. David, however, wasn't intimidated. He knew his strengths, and while he may not have been a scholar, he was a problem solver, a mechanic, trained to think on his feet and tackle challenges head-on. The first puzzle appeared on the screen. A complex geometric shape with missing parts. It seemed impossible at first glance, with angles and lines twisting in ways that seemed unfamiliar. David narrowed his eyes, taking in the shape. He'd never seen anything like it, but he had fixed machines that seemed impossible to repair before. This was no different. He started by focusing on the edges, measuring the spaces and aligning the patterns. His fingers moved as if guided by instinct, tracing out the possible solutions in his mind. He felt the weight of the alien's expectations, but he pushed forward. After a few moments, he clicked a button, and the shape reassembled itself. The crowd let out a collective gasp, clearly impressed. Impressive, the alien leader acknowledged, his voice betraying just the slightest hint of surprise. But that was only the first test. The next puzzle involved a complex series of numbers. David had always been more comfortable with tools than math, but he knew enough to get by. He stared at the screen, analyzing the pattern. The numbers seemed to follow a strange rhythm, a code that David recognized only from his years of mechanical repair, codes and sequences that machines followed. As his mind worked, he began to map out the numbers, linking them to the machinery he had once worked on. It clicked. Slowly, he entered the correct sequence, and the numbers on the screen shifted into place. The alien audience murmured, clearly intrigued by his ability to crack codes. The alien leader stepped back, watching David intently. For the first time, David felt a shift in the air. The aliens were beginning to take him seriously. This wasn't just some human. This was someone who could think and adapt quickly, someone who could solve problems the same way they did. The final challenge was the most difficult, a scenario where David had to devise a solution to an impossible situation. A spacecraft was about to crash, and David had to figure out how to save it using only a limited set of resources. David took a deep breath. The clock was ticking down. He could see the gears turning in the alien leader's eyes, waiting to see if David would falter. But David wasn't about to give up. He immediately began constructing a solution, building on everything he knew about engineering and problem-solving. With just seconds to spare, David hit the final key. The spaceship's trajectory adjusted, and the crash was averted. The crowd exploded into applause. The alien leader remained silent for a moment, clearly astonished. "You've passed the test of intellect, human," he finally said, his voice tinged with a new respect. "You have done what we believed impossible." David, sweating but grinning, took a deep breath. He had proven his worth, not just to the aliens, but to himself. The journey was far from over, but for the first time, he felt like humanity had made its mark in a universe that had once considered them insignificant. As the applause died down, the alien leader stepped forward again, his eyes studying David with newfound interest. What would come next? Only time would tell, but one thing was certain. David was ready for whatever challenges awaited him. And humanity wasn't going down without a fight. David stood still, feeling the weight of the alien leader's gaze on him. He had passed the tests of strength and intellect, but there was still something in the air, an unspoken tension that he couldn't quite shake off. The crowd of alien spectators had grown quiet, awaiting the next challenge, but David wasn't sure what was coming. The leader had only nodded, acknowledging his success, but David could see the challenge in his eyes. There was still one more hurdle to overcome. "You've impressed us, human," the alien leader said, his voice now softer but still firm. "But we have yet to test your resolve. This last trial will reveal who you truly are." David didn't like the sound of that. He had proven his strength and intellect, but what was this new test? His eyes scanned the area around him, but there was nothing visible, just the towering alien structures and the eerie silence that now blanketed the arena. The alien leader extended his hand, and in an instant, a strange, swirling energy appeared in the air before them. It rippled like a storm, each wave distorting the space around them. "This is the trial of the mind and the spirit," the alien leader explained. "You must confront your deepest fears, your greatest weaknesses. Do you have the courage to face them?" David swallowed hard. The idea of facing his fears was unnerving, but he wasn't about to back down now. He had come this far, and there was no turning back. The leader's hand motioned toward the swirling energy, and with a sudden pull, David found himself stepping forward into the unknown. The world around him shifted. In an instant, the desert landscape disappeared, replaced by an eerie, dark version of his hometown. He stood in the middle of a street, looking at the familiar houses, but something was off. The air felt thick, as if it was pressing in on him. The lights in the houses flickered, and a feeling of dread washed over him. As he looked around, he saw people, his friends, his family, walking by, but their faces were expressionless, their eyes dull. They didn't seem to notice him. And then, a figure stepped out from the shadows. It was someone he recognized, but it wasn't who he remembered. It was his younger brother, looking lost and afraid. David's heart raced. "What is this? What's going on?" he asked aloud, but the figure didn't answer. Instead, his brother simply looked at him, eyes wide with terror, as if trying to warn him of something. The ground beneath David's feet trembled, and he felt a chill creep down his spine. Suddenly, he was overwhelmed with a feeling of helplessness. His brother began to fade away, disappearing into the dark abyss. David reached out, but his hand passed through him like smoke. "Why can't I save you?" David whispered, as the emptiness consumed everything around him. His fear of losing those he loved, of not being able to protect them, was now staring him in the face. A voice echoed in his mind. "This is your fear, human. You are not as strong as you think. You will always lose those you care about." David's knees nearly gave way under the weight of the realization. He had always feared that he wasn't strong enough, that no matter how hard he tried, he would fail those closest to him. But in this moment, in this dreamlike world, he had to face that fear. Taking a deep breath, David straightened himself. "No," he muttered under his breath. "I won't let fear control me." He shook his head, forcing the doubts away. He had survived impossible odds before, and he would survive now. The figure of his brother began to fade again, but this time, David reached out with both hands, determined not to let go. With one final powerful pull, he held on to the image of his brother, his past, and used it to fuel his strength. The landscape around him shattered. The haunting darkness gave way to light, and the fear lifted. He had faced it, and he had conquered it. David opened his eyes and found himself back in the arena, surrounded by the alien spectators, the swirling energy now gone. The alien leader stood before him, his expression unreadable. "You have passed, human," he said. "You have faced your greatest fear and emerged victorious. You have proven your strength not just of body and mind, but of spirit." David nodded, sweat dripping down his face. He had done it. He had faced his demons, both literal and figurative, and he had come out the other side stronger. The leader stepped aside, and the crowd began to murmur with approval. David had done more than just pass tests. He had proven that humanity, at its core, could withstand anything the universe threw at it, and still stand tall. But this was only the beginning. The real challenge had just begun. David felt a strange sense of pride as the alien leader stepped aside, acknowledging his victory. The crowd of alien onlookers murmured with interest, but there was still a sense of unease in the air. The trials were far from over. David had proven his physical and intellectual worth, but now he was about to face something he had never expected. As the alien leader made way, another figure stepped forward. This was not like the others. Taller, more graceful, with skin that shimmered like liquid silver under the strange glow of the arena. Her eyes were a deep shade of violet, and her hair flowed around her like a halo, casting a soft light around her. She was breathtaking in a way that made David feel as though he were looking at something otherworldly. Yet there was something familiar about her, too. Something comforting. Who is she? David wondered aloud, though he hadn't meant to speak. The alien leader, still standing beside him, answered his unspoken question. She is Alana, the guardian of the trials. She will be your guide through the next phase. But be warned, human. The challenges that lie ahead are not only physical but will test your very beliefs and perceptions. David nodded, his curiosity piqued. He had faced impossible odds so far, but he had always managed to push through. But something about Alana's presence made him pause. There was an air of mystery about her that he couldn't shake. She didn't seem to fit the role of a simple guide. As she approached him, the crowd fell silent, the air thick with anticipation. "You have done well, human," Alana said, her voice calm and measured. "But there is something you must understand. The trials you face were only the surface. To truly prove yourself worthy, you must learn the truth of this world, the truth of the stars, the truth of those who call themselves the Galactic Federation." David listened intently, his heart racing. He had come this far, but the journey had only begun. "What do you mean? What truth?" Alana's violet eyes glimmered. "The Federation has its own secrets, and it has chosen to keep them hidden from you, hidden from the entire galaxy. But the time for secrets is coming to an end. The truth is within you, and you must be ready to accept it." David was taken aback. He had never thought of himself as part of some grand cosmic secret. He was just a man, a human, a survivor. He had no ambitions beyond getting through these trials, but now he could feel something stirring inside him, something bigger than himself, bigger than anything he had ever imagined. "Will I be able to understand?" David asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Can I handle whatever this truth is?" Alana smiled, though it was more of a knowing smile than one of reassurance. "You will not have a choice, human. The galaxy is about to change, and you will play a role in its rebirth. But first, you must open your mind, your heart. You must accept the responsibility that comes with knowledge." David hesitated. He wasn't sure he was ready for such a burden. The weight of what she was saying felt immense, but something inside him urged him to push forward. He couldn't turn back now. He had already proven himself worthy in the trials. Now, it seemed, the real test was about to begin. The arena began to shift once more. The ground trembled beneath his feet, and the stars above seemed to flicker and shift as if they were alive. Alana stepped forward, gesturing for David to follow. He had no choice but to follow, trusting in the alien who now stood before him as an unexpected ally. As they moved deeper into the arena, David could sense that something had changed within him. He was no longer just a human. He was part of something larger, something that transcended the bounds of his world. "Let the next trial begin," Alana said, her voice tinged with both excitement and solemnity. "And remember, human, the truth can be both a gift and a curse. What you choose to do with it will determine your fate." David took a deep breath and stepped into the unknown, ready to face whatever awaited him. The universe was about to reveal its deepest secrets, and he was ready, no matter the cost. The air in the chamber grew thick with tension as David followed Alana through a narrow passage. The walls shimmered with an ethereal glow, and soft, melodic sounds echoed around them. It felt like they were walking through the very heart of the galaxy itself, as if the universe was alive and watching them move forward. Alana walked ahead, her steps graceful and purposeful. David tried to keep up, but his mind was racing. He had no idea what was about to happen, but the weight of Alana's words lingered in the air. She had spoken of hidden truths, of secrets that the Galactic Federation had kept from him. The question swirled in his mind, but he dared not speak. He knew that whatever came next was not something to be taken lightly. They arrived at the end of the passage, where the door before them was made of a smooth metallic substance. Alana raised her hand, and the door slid open with a quiet hum. Inside, A large, circular room awaited them. The walls were lined with holographic displays, showing images of distant stars, planets, and strange, uncharted worlds. In the center of the room, there was a massive, glowing orb suspended in midair. It pulsed with a soft, bluish light, and David could feel its power radiating throughout the space. "This is the Nexus," Alana said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The heart of the galaxy. The place where the secrets of the Federation are stored." David couldn't take his eyes off the orb. It was beautiful, but it also felt dangerous, like it held knowledge too powerful to be controlled. He could feel the weight of history pressing down on him, and the realization that he was standing at the threshold of something monumental. "What do you mean, the secrets of the Federation?" David asked, his voice trembling slightly. "What is this place?" Alana turned to face him, her expression serious. "This orb holds the memories of every species, every civilization, and every event that has ever shaped the galaxy. It is a library of all knowledge. But the Federation, for reasons unknown, chose to keep this information hidden from the galaxy at large. They feared the consequences of revealing the truth." David's heart raced. What truth? Alana's violet eyes softened, and for the first time, there was a hint of vulnerability in her gaze. "The truth that the galaxy is not what it seems. The Federation was founded on a lie. For centuries, they have controlled information, manipulated events, and kept the galaxy in the dark. But now, that control is slipping. And you, human, have been chosen to be the catalyst for change." David's mind was spinning. A lie. The Federation, the very organization that he had believed was the protector of peace in the galaxy, was built on falsehoods. The implications of this were staggering. But Alana wasn't finished. "You are here because you are different," she continued. "Humans are not like the other species in the galaxy. Your kind possesses something that no other race does: the ability to think outside the confines of established rules, the ability to change the course of history. The Federation feared this, which is why they have kept you and your kind isolated." David took a step closer to the orb, drawn to it by an invisible force. He didn't know what to believe anymore. The Federation had always been the symbol of order and unity in the galaxy, but now it seemed like a shadow of something darker. "How do I stop them?" David asked, determination settling in his chest. Alana's gaze softened. "The truth lies within you, human. You must awaken the power that you have inside you, the power that the Federation has tried to suppress. Only then will you be able to decide the galaxy's fate." David felt a surge of energy course through him, and for the first time since he had arrived in this strange world, he understood. The answers he had been searching for were within reach, but the path forward was uncertain. The galaxy's future rested on his shoulders, and it was up to him to decide what would come next. Alana placed a hand on his shoulder, her expression filled with a mix of hope and fear. "The Federation may come for you, human, but you are not alone. You have allies, and together, you can change the course of history." David nodded. He didn't know how, but he knew one thing. The truth was out there, and he was going to find it, no matter the cost. The room hummed with energy as the orb began to glow brighter, its light casting long shadows on the walls. The galaxy was waiting, and David was ready to confront its darkest secrets. The room was quiet, the hum of the orb filling the space as David stood, his mind racing. He had learned more in the last few hours than he could have ever imagined. The Federation, the galaxy's supposed peacekeepers, were built on a lie that had kept the universe in the dark about the truth of its past and its future. David could feel the weight of the decision that lay before him. The knowledge in the orb, the truth it held, could change everything. It could alter the course of history for all species in the galaxy. But what was he supposed to do with it? How could one human take on the responsibility of exposing such a vast secret? And what if the Federation came after him? Alana stood beside him, her violet eyes steady and calm. "You understand now, don't you? The Federation has used its power to control the galaxy. But that control is breaking down. You have a choice to make. You can expose the truth, or you can walk away. David turned to her, searching her face for any hint of hesitation. But there was none. She believed in him. It was clear now that she saw something in him that even he didn't fully understand. If I expose the truth, everything changes. I'm not just risking my life, but the lives of countless others. Alana nodded. Yes, but the truth will free those who are oppressed by the Federation's lies. It will give everyone the chance to make their own choices, to determine their own futures. You may be just one human, but you have the power to ignite a movement. The galaxy has never seen anything like it. David's mind swirled with the weight of her words. He had always considered himself an ordinary man, just someone who worked on machines and lived a simple life. But now he was being asked to decide the fate of entire civilizations. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. I can't let this continue. If the Federation has lied to the galaxy all this time, then it's time for the truth to come out. Alana's expression softened, and she placed a hand on his shoulder. You are more than ready, David. The universe needs people like you, people who won't stand by while others suffer. You have the courage to do what others can't. David turned toward the glowing orb, feeling its pull once more. It was as if the knowledge inside was calling to him, urging him to act. He didn't know exactly how to expose the truth, but he knew that he had to try. He couldn't let the galaxy remain in the dark any longer. The Federation might try to stop me, David said, his voice steady. But I won't be intimidated. I'll expose their lies, no matter what it takes. Alana gave a small smile, a mixture of pride and concern in her eyes. You have the strength of humanity behind you. You will not be alone in this fight. Others will join you, and together you will make a difference. David nodded, determination setting in. He had a long road ahead of him, and there would be challenges, but he had something more than just knowledge on his side. He had hope, courage, and the drive to fight for what was right. The orb pulsed one last time, its light filling the room. In that moment, David felt ready. Ready to face whatever came next, ready to confront the Federation and whatever power they held. He wasn't just a mechanic from Earth anymore. He was the spark that could ignite a revolution. As he turned to Alana, he felt the weight of the universe upon him. But he was no longer afraid. The truth would come to light, and he would be the one to lead the charge. Let's do this, David said, his voice full of resolve. And with that, the journey of a lifetime began. The galaxy was waiting, and David was ready to change the world.